With the cold weather drawing in, it's time to curl up on the sofa and enjoy the cosy side of life. But if you're like us, living in a drafty house means you can't curl up on the sofa without wearing all your clothes and turning up the heating. So I'm going to test 9 home heating hacks that are unbelievably easy and super cheap to do yourself. And I'll let you know which ones I think are the best place to start to get the biggest impact for your money. And they'll get you back snugging on that sofa like you're in a Christmas rom-com.
Hey, Pete here from Northern Works. So I've got a big box of stuff to try out. I've lit a roaring fire. Let's get started with the windows. Now, a good set of curtains or blinds is going to block most of the drafts coming from your windows, but unless you're a hermit, you might want to let some light in your house every now and again. So I've got a couple of products that I'm going to test, and the first one is this self-adhesive P-strip. Just a pretty simple bit of foam, and it fits in between the window and the frame itself, blocking out any air that might want to get through. Even though these front windows are pretty old, the stuff that's in here is actually reasonably good condition. But you don't need any special equipment to see that the seals around these kitchen windows have definitely seen better days. So I'll clean up the strip that's already there and give it another layer just for a bit of extra help. One problem I do have with these front windows is around these fixed panes of glass, where over time just a little gap has opened up and cold air can come through. So I'm going to use some silicone sealant and run a thin bead all the way around. Remember, wood will move as the seasons come and go, so make sure you use a flexible sealant. For sure the front door is pretty bad, but this back door is just basically a big hole in the wall. It lets so much air out. We really need to fix it. And the funny thing is, I don't think we've ever opened it in the 3 years we've lived here. That's not the right key. So I'm going to start with the same thing I did on the windows and do a combination of the P-strip and the silicone around the windows, as well as the sides and the top of the door. There's also a pretty hefty gap at the bottom here, whatever this is called. So I'm going to use a strip of foam to block that up, and then I've got something else for the other side. And on the inside down here, I've got this little brush. And I've also got one of these for the front door. The other thing you want to think about with doors is anywhere where there's a hole from the inside to the outside. So like a letterbox or a keyhole. Our letterbox cover is just a bit rubbish really. It doesn't have any brushes and it doesn't have any springs, and it just lets all the air through. So I'm going to replace that with something a little bit more substantial. And then for the keyholes at the front and the back door, I've just got these simple little keyhole covers. They are meant to screw into the door, but just a little bit of double-sided sticky tape, stick those on, and it'll make a massive difference. And then the last thing with doors is, if you can, add a curtain. A big, thick curtain added to your door is going to do wonders just to block off any of those final little trickles of cold air coming through. So how have I been finding my drafts, and how am I going to know if I've actually improved them? Well, I've been using one of these. It's a smoke pen. It's a really handy little device. You just light the wick, you let it go out, and it'll emit smoke for 3 or 4 minutes. A steady stream of smoke, that's going to tell you there's no draft. And then once you can see the airflow, it's going to push that smoke around in some weird ways. And so once I've installed everything, I'll go around and I'll test everything again with the smoke pen and see how much it's improved. I'll leave a link to this and all of the other things I've used in the description. Insulating your walls is going to have one of the biggest impacts on keeping the heat in the house and keeping your bills down. But whether it's cavity wall insulation or solid wall insulation, it's a big job and it's probably going to cost you thousands to do. But that's not what we're doing in this video. We're looking for some quick hacks. But I don't think there's many things that are quicker or easier than sticking some reflective foil behind your radiators, which all of that hot air and heat that is going out the back of your radiator is going to reflect it into the room instead of letting it go out of the wall. Now, I'm using this bubble foil insulation because I've got loads left over from when I did the floor last year, but this works just as well with a bit of kitchen tin foil wrapped around cardboard. Another area of the wall that makes a big difference is your skirting boards and where your skirting meets the floor. I fitted this foil last year and it made a huge difference under the carpet, but I'm still getting some drafty areas right where the floor meets the skirting. So I'm going to fix that with a little seam of aluminium tape. You might find you've got some gaps around the actual skirting itself, and you can fill those really easily with just a bead of cork. Now, if you've got a fireplace, or in my case, a place where there will be a fireplace in a future project, then you probably already know just how much hot air is lost up your chimney. As the hot air rises and escapes, it acts like a giant vacuum cleaner and sucks in loads of cold air into the room. So I've got myself a chimney sheep, which is made from Cumbrian wool from Cumbrian sheep, so I already know it's going to be amazing. So you can stick it up your chimney when you're not using it, and it'll block out any of those drafts that are trying to escape. And then when you want to light a fire, you just take it out again. In a lot of homes, most of the heat is lost through the roof, so at least make sure your loft insulation is up to scratch. But for a quick fix, let's look at the access hatch. This home gym was an absolute godsend a few years ago when we weren't allowed to leave the house, but now it just lets all of the air escape into the loft. So a little bit of white foam should keep the air in and also keep those spiders out. Of course, there's loads of other holes letting air in and out of your house. Some of them make sense, like these holes for the Wi-Fi and electrical cables, while others are just mystery bonus holes. You can fill most holes like these with expanding foam. Make sure you don't block up any holes that are supposed to be there, like these air bricks. They're important for ventilation and airflow through your house. Alright, so where would I start? Well, you know I love a cost-benefit analysis, and so I've come up with 3 different categories: B, A, and then S for superior. In the B tier, the first one is the Chimney Sheep. It's an absolutely great product, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely on the pricey side for this list of super cheap hacks. And I reckon if you used your fireplace often, it could get a little bit annoying, kind of taking it in and out all the time. And then second thing in the B tier is the aluminium tape. It is really cheap, but it was a massive faff to get in. And to be honest, it probably hasn't given me that much improvement over the aluminium bubble foil insulation that I put down last year. Onto the A tier. These things are definitely worth doing, but they might cost you a little bit more, or they're a bit more complicated to do. So the first one is the expanding foam. If you've got loads of holes coming in and out of your walls, then this is a great way of getting them filled up. And I can feel the difference in our kitchen for sure. We had a lot of holes outside. The second one is the silicone sealant. Now, this has made an absolutely massive difference, although I think that probably says more about the huge gaps around my windows than it does necessarily the silicone sealant. But I know that some people could be a bit put off by maybe the mess, maybe feeling like this one's a bit more complicated, so that's why it's only made it to the A tier. And that's the same reason why I've put the letterbox cover in the A tier as well. Not everyone wants to start drilling holes in their front door, which is why everything that I've put on the S list is stuff that I think literally anyone can do. And so first on this list is the self-adhesive door brushes and those little keyhole covers that I stuck on with double-sided sticky tape. These 2 things only cost me £5 each, and the difference that they've made is absolutely insane. I genuinely walked into the kitchen the other day, and normally that kitchen is about the same temperature as whatever it is outside, and I just felt like I was
in a room in our house, which sounds ridiculous because it is a room in our house, but it's the first time I've felt like it's potentially a cozy space. I know my kitchen door is probably the biggest problem in our house, so your experience might vary, but for a £5, it's got to be worth trying. And the same is true for the tin foil behind the radiators. I put it on 5 of our radiators, and the fact that all of that heat that was just going out through the external wall is now being pushed back into the room is just flipping brilliant. I can definitely feel a difference. And the fact that you could do it with just some tin foil, unbelievable. Definitely recommend that one. But my top tip has got to be those rolls of foam. Around doors, around the windows, around the loft hatch, pretty much anywhere that I could think of. I just went round and stuck some of that foam, and it's filled all of the gaps. Like, it's stopped those drafts dead. It's unreal. And the best thing about it, I think, is they're totally foolproof. It's just some self-adhesive on the back of some foam. So even if you're renting, you could bash some of that stuff in around your windows, around your doors. Your landlord would never even notice. Do you know what? Even better yet, get your landlord to do it for you, because it's literally the law that they're supposed to do that. So really, really easy. Get yourself some foam. It's about 15 quid. It'll change your life. It might not change your life. It'll change your drafts. Right, I've absolutely loved making this video because drafts are such a sexy topic. But I did mention that I fitted the aluminium bubble foil in our living room about this time last year, and it's made a huge difference. So to see how I got on with that, you can watch this video. See you again.